Johnny Rosselli is one of the lesser-known Mafia figures in history, but that doesn't make his story any less enjoyable. This colorful figure was known for his good looks, dapper style, and smooth-talking personality. He was friends with celebrities and was even rumored to have dated Hollywood actresses. What people saw on the outside was a key player in Hollywood and a brilliant entrepreneur in Las Vegas, but all this was in part due to Johnny's ties with organized crime. In today's video, we're going to cover Johnny Rosselli's life in organized crime throughout the decades. Stay tuned to find out how he rose to power within the Chicago outfit, extorted studios in LA, and even played a crucial role in a CIA plot. The world today may know him as Handsome Johnny, but he was actually named Filippo Sacco at birth. He was born in Italy in 1905 and later immigrated to the US at the age of 6 with his mother, staying in Boston. Handsome Johnny got involved in crime at a young age. He was first arrested on narcotic charges in 1922 when he was only a teenager. This caused him to flee to New York, where he stayed for 3 months. His next move sent him to Chicago. This is also when he changed his name to Johnny Rosselli. While he was in Chicago, Johnny transitioned from petty street crime to the organized criminal underworld. Throughout the 1920s, Handsome Johnny was involved in bootlegging. He initially started bootlegging in Chicago, which brought him to Los Angeles in 1924. It hasn't been confirmed exactly why he moved to California, but speculation suggests that he may have been sent to oversee the outfit's business interests, mainly the racing wire and a movie extortion scheme. In California, he worked with small-time bootleggers and eventually became Tony Cornero's top truck driver. Tony Cornero and his brothers were bootlegging and gambling entrepreneurs of that era. Johnny's working relationship with the Cornero brothers only strengthened, and he was promoted to work closely with them. He became responsible for securing liquor imports in Southern California. However, Handsome Johnny played an even more valuable role to the bootleggers than simply securing liquor imports. He was an expert at bribing Orange County officials to gain their loyalty. This opened up the ports, allowing the gang to use them. However, authorities already had their eyes on the Cornero brothers. In 1926, Tony Cornero was looking at a 2-year prison sentence for bootlegging. To avoid this, he fled to Canada. This caused his crew to fall apart, and Johnny Rosselli went solo. He stayed in the world of LA underground crime and focused on prostitution and gambling rackets. In 1927, Johnny traveled to Chicago to watch a boxing match. He later attended a party hosted by Al Capone, where he got the opportunity to meet the notorious figure and others from his Chicago circle. 1 year later, in 1928, Al Capone invited Johnny to Chicago and offered him a position in his organization. Al Capone believed that Johnny could help him out by working with the Los Angeles crime family. Johnny would keep an eye on Capone's investments while also maintaining cooperation between the Chicago and Los Angeles crime organizations. There was always speculation that the Mafia was involved in the movie business. As Johnny Rosselli spent more time in LA, he became familiar with more of the prominent figures. He became acquainted with several producers, actors, and others in show business. It's believed that he was assigned by the mob to form these relationships to climb the ladders of the film industry hierarchy. He first formed a friendship with Brian Foy, a Hollywood producer who brought him into the movie production business. He also created a close friendship with Harry Cohn, the boss of Columbia Pictures. Part of the reason that people were fascinated by Handsome Johnny was that he was a self-styled playboy. He had a certain charm that attracted people, and he was able to use that to form relationships with prominent figures. It's rumored that he became close friends with Frank Sinatra and may have had an intimate relationship with Marilyn Monroe. There are even rumors suggesting that he may have played a role in helping her jumpstart her career. While he was connected to plenty of famous faces, there was more going on behind the scenes. Frank Nitti was Al Capone's successor for the Chicago mob. He had a plan in store for a takedown of the movie business, and he needed Handsome Johnny to help him. Frank Nitti had planned out an extortion scheme. He gained a lot of power by having control of a labor union. He then allegedly used this power to demand under-the-table payouts from the movie studios. The movie studios paid up because the mob threatened to shut them down. While this scheme brought in millions, it also brought in a lot of legal trouble. In 1942, he was indicted on racketeering charges and 1 year later convicted for his role in the extortion scheme. He ended up going to prison in 1943 and was released in 1947. When Johnny was released from prison, he needed to find a legitimate job. Now, most ex-cons would find day-to-day labor jobs, but Handsome Johnny wasn't going to take that path. He already had connections in show business, so he ended up getting a job as an associate producer at a movie studio with Brian Foy. He co-produced 2 noir crime films, He Walked by Night and Cannon City. In the 1950s, Johnny Rosselli shifted his focus from show business in Los Angeles to the growing gambling scene in Las Vegas. He ended up becoming the Chicago and Los Angeles mob chief representative in Las Vegas. He played a major role in helping the Chicago outfit influence Sin City. It was up to Handsome Johnny to make sure the Chicago and LA mobs got a share of the casino cut. He would do this through a process called skimming, where he would take cash off the top of a receipt and state a lower total. He also made big moves to increase profits. There are rumors that he brought in the Detroit mob to help finance the Tropicana Hotel. With their financing, he could continue the skimming scheme to keep money coming in for the Chicago outfit. During the late 1950s and going into the 1960s, the Rat Pack was at the height of their popularity. They were booked steadily with gigs on stage and film. Frank Sinatra was known to have connections in organized crime. There was controversy over his relationships with figures like Johnny Rosselli and Sam Giancana, boss of the Chicago outfit, especially since Frank Sinatra was known to have political friendships as well. It's rumored that he acted as a liaison to get votes for John F. Kennedy. While this connection may have seemed valuable at the time, it ended up backfiring. The Kennedy Association ended up cutting ties with Frank Sinatra and launched a war on organized crime. CIA assassin Lee Server spoke about Johnny Rosselli in an interview. He mentioned that there were investigations in the 1950s. Most Mafia figures at the time refused to speak. Handsome Johnny, on the other hand, showed no fear. He answered every question he was asked, but he crafted every answer in a way that gave zero information away. He spoke while ultimately saying nothing. In 1959, the Cuban Revolution came to an end. Fidel Castro had risen to power by overthrowing the former dictator Fulgencio Batista. He nationalized all American-owned businesses in Cuba, which led to the U.S. ending diplomatic relations. By 1960, the top leaders of the CIA were hatching a plan to get rid of Fidel Castro. This was the beginning of what was known as a sensitive mission requiring gangster-type action. The CIA had 2 mobsters in mind for the job. At this point, the Chicago outfit ran a multi-million-dollar empire. Sam Giancana had a reputation as a violent boss, while Johnny Rosselli was the suave, smooth talker. These 2 were known to have a history of working together, and they were the ideal fit for the job the CIA had, or at least that's what they thought. In 1960, a middleman for the CIA approached Johnny and Sam about the assassination plot. The mobsters were offered $150,000 to kill Fidel Castro, which is over $1.5 million today. But the mobsters turned the reward down. They didn't need or want the money. Killing Fidel Castro was personal to them. When Fidel Castro closed American-owned businesses, this included casinos. The Chicago outfit had very lucrative casinos in Havana and a resort. This drove the Mafia out of Cuba and affected the cash flow. It is believed that the mobsters thought they could still revive the resort. Even though they had told the FBI that they accepted the assignment without pay for patriotic reasons, the real reason was revenge. That and the notion that they could get a get-out-of-jail-free card for their own criminal activity. Unfortunately, this mission was a bust. Johnny, Sam, and every hitman they recruited failed at the assassination attempts. Each attempt went wrong, whether it was from bad timing or just bad luck. There was even one hitman who was assigned to poison Fidel Castro with a pill, but backed out before he could spike the leader's food. During this time, the CIA operated the plot in Florida under a fake business name, Zenith Enterprises. Handsome Johnny earned the nickname Colonel during this mission because he was training Cubans as fighters for this conspiracy. No matter how much work and planning they put into this plot, it never panned out. It's believed that Fidel Castro was one step ahead of the CIA. Allegedly, he had a network of double agents that were able to keep him protected. Ultimately, nobody assassinated Fidel Castro, who went on to lead Cuba until 2008. He later died of natural causes in 2015. Although the mission didn't go as planned, it was discovered that there was a file created in 1962 called Protect Johnny. In this file, there were details about Johnny Rosselli's heroic efforts. The file was kept locked in a safe and given the number 667270. While this suggests that the file was real, congressional investigators could not track it down. However, the operation plan stopped after John F. Kennedy was assassinated in 1963. Lyndon B. Johnson became the 36th U.S. president and allegedly told the CIA to get out of the cloak and dagger business. In 1963, Frank Sinatra sponsored Johnny Rosselli's membership at the Los Angeles Friars Club. Handsome Johnny was no stranger to card games and gambling. After all, he played a major role in the Chicago outfit's growth in Las Vegas and the casino scene. He knew how to cheat, and he also knew how to spot a cheater. Johnny wasn't at the club very long before he spotted a card cheating operation that was being run by Maurice Friedman. So, what did Johnny do with this information? He demanded a cut of the profit. This operation took millions of dollars from wealthy men in Los Angeles. People like Zeppo Marx and Debbie Reynolds' husband were victims of this cheating scam. The card cheating scam carried on for another 4 years before the FBI busted it. They discovered the operation when they were tailing Johnny Rosselli. Ultimately, several people, including Handsome Johnny, were convicted. While he didn't receive jail time, he did have to pay a $55,000 fine. Once the card cheating operation came to light, Johnny Rosselli believed it was the perfect time to cash in on his get-out-of-jail-free card. He threatened to expose the CIA's plot, which at the time wasn't known to Congress or the public. By the 1970s, the world of organized crime caught up to Johnny Rosselli. He was starting to face real legal troubles. To make matters worse, there was talk that he was falling out with the Chicago outfit. The CIA's plot to assassinate Fidel Castro was exposed in the 1970s. Both Johnny Rosselli and Sam Giancana were called to testify. A few days before they were set to testify, someone entered Sam's house through the basement and shot him 7 times. To this day, the crime has not been solved. There have been several theories, some of which point to him being taken out so he couldn't testify about the CIA plot. Whatever happened was enough to scare Handsome Johnny, who left LA and moved to Miami. Johnny Rosselli was upset about the murder of his friend. When giving his testimony, he wasn't forthcoming, so the authorities were considering perjury charges. In a desperate attempt, his attorneys claimed that he had information about a conspiracy behind JFK's assassination. As he was tangled in legal battles, his power within the Chicago outfit was declining. He was no longer seen as the strategic smooth talker who could talk his way into and out of any situation. In the mid-1970s, he was bringing too much attention to organized crime. Allegedly, the Mafia was also viewing him as a public source of embarrassment. Another problem was that 3 Mafia leaders went to prison after an investigation of the crime involved in the Frontier Hotel in 1971. It was believed that Johnny secretly provided information that resulted in the prosecution. In April 1976, Johnny gave his testimony on the JFK assassination. Several months later, they wanted to bring him in for another round, but he was nowhere to be found. Johnny Rosselli disappeared on July 28, 1976. His body was discovered 10 days later. A fisherman had discovered a 55-gallon drum that was floating in the water. Little is known about the events that led up to his murder, but a lot has been speculated. Here is what we know. The last time Johnny was seen alive was earlier in the day when he ate brunch with his sister in Miami. Then he borrowed her car to drive to the marina. From here, there's speculation that Johnny boarded a boat with 2 men and was believed to have known one of them. But once they were on the boat, a 3rd man appeared. This man allegedly strangled him to death. The men on the boat proceeded to saw off his legs and stuff him in the drum. They threw the drum into Dumbfoundling Bay near Miami, but this drum didn't sink, it floated. There have been 3 prominent theories on who was responsible: the Cubans, the CIA, and the Chicago mob. While there are 3 suspects, in theory, this crime strongly points to the work of Mafia members. Many people write off the theory that the Cubans are responsible because of the style of the murder. It's speculated that if this were an attack from them, Johnny would have been shot on the street or they would have blown up his car. Many people also rule out the theory that the CIA orchestrated the hit. This is because it was discovered that they encouraged Johnny to testify about everything he knew. After all, everything was going to come out eventually, whether he testified or not. With this murder, all signs point to the Mafia. While nobody has ever been convicted, FBI investigations summarize that this hit could have come from the Chicago outfit. It's believed that Anthony Accardo arranged for a group, led by Frank Schweiss and Vincent Insero, to kill Johnny Rosselli. This wraps up our story of Johnny Rosselli's life as a career criminal. He rose to power in underground crime at a young age in the 1920s. He became a key player for the Chicago outlet and their representative in Los Angeles and Las Vegas. During his time in organized crime, he made a lot of friends in Hollywood and pulled off a studio extortion scheme. In Las Vegas, he played a key role in the mob's growth and power within the casino industry. But after a failed CIA assassination plot, things started going downhill for Handsome Johnny. This ultimately led to his mysterious death in 1976. Thank you for staying tuned to the end. Make sure you tell us what you think happened to Johnny Rosselli in the comments. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe to see more Mafia Mystique content.